Boo bitches! Welcome to episode 105 of C3 Crystals, Cauldrons, and Cocktails. And for a while, we haven't been introducing ourselves. So for any new listeners, I'm River.
Have we not? Wow, I'm Ren.
I think the last two we didn't introduce ourselves. But
Well,
anyway,
you should already know, duh.
well, yeah, but some people have
No,
just
I
discovered
know.
us and are starting now. So anyway, we're River and Ren. Today we're going to talk about clairvoyance. I've always been fascinated by it, so I'm really excited about this episode. But
Mhm.
first, what are we drinking? So we're totally embracing fall now. October is right around the corner. Yesterday was
Mhm.
my birthday.
Ooh.
Uh, so yeah, we're having some fallish drinks. We're having a good time trying to create some fall drinks.
Mhm.
So we call this one the Twisted Rum Puff. Still working on that name, not sure about that. But what it is, guys, this is the weirdest thing. It has popcorn infused rum, orange liqueur or orange soda or orange LaCroix or whatever orange
Mhm.
flavor you want
Mhm.
to use, and simple syrup as needed. And you serve it over ice. And then you garnish it with popcorn and orange slices. And so the way you infuse this rum is my mouth is watering, and is that you pop the microwave butter popcorn. I use the Orville Redenbacher
Mhm.
super
Mhm.
movie theater
Mhm.
butter. My mouth, guys, is watering. And you pour into a plastic baggie, you pour the rum over this, you put the popcorn in the bag, you put the rum in the bag, and you let it sit overnight.
Mhm.
Then you put it in the freezer
Ooh.
so that the solids will freeze because the
Mhm.
rum won't freeze.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
then you can strain the rum out and it'll have that buttery flavor. And then you add the orange to it and simple syrup if you like it sweeter, like Ren
Mhm.
does. Um,
Yeah, freezing it's a
it's
good idea because I
mhm.
just used a strainer.
Well, yeah, because freezer is makes it a lot easier to
Yeah. Yeah.
get those chunks. But anyway, it's an interesting flavor. I I kind of like it.
Yeah, it reminds me. So, growing up, my parents would always buy like infused olive oils.
Oh
And
yeah.
so, like, we've had like really good balsamic olive oil salads, river dying.
Did you hear that? I'm trying to cover the microphone.
I don't know. We'll see when
Okay.
I edit.
Sorry.
But no, it's okay. But my parents would buy like infused olive oil flavors, and so one of them was lemon and one of them was orange, and we would make orange brownies. Like
Oh,
or
that
like
sounds lovely.
those cookies where they come with all those
You've made me
flavors?
orange brownies before. Is that
Yes.
was that using orange?
Yes. The
Oh,
olive
how
oil. Yes,
cool.
it's so interesting, but it adds like that flavor. And I can't remember the brand, but they're like those like little oval shaped cookies with like crackers on top, chocolate in the middle, but they have like flavors with them, like orange flavor,
Yeah, yeah,
raspberry.
yeah.
It's sort of like that where it's like the brownie and the orange. So this drink gives me the same vibes as like it's like something infused, like something different, like orange
It
brownie
is.
or something like that. And I love it. It's so good.
And we're gonna tweak it so that we can tell you all the amounts. We're still working on
Yeah.
this
It's
book.
just like
I,
a
I'm
splash of that.
I'm half inclined just to print our book saying measure with your heart and let our readers
Yeah,
and
that's what I'm
listeners
like. I mean,
figure it
first of all,
out.
it's easier to do it that way.
Well, yeah,
Because I
not that
mean,
we're
we have
lazy.
no, but we have all of the ingredients, but like again, I'm different with the measurements that
Yeah,
I want, and you're different with the measurements that
yeah.
you want. We might have to do like a split thing where it's like River's
River's version
recommendations
and
and
Ren's
Ren's
version.
recommendations so
Or just
that
say measure with your freaking heart.
yeah, the title
Here's
needs
the
to be Measure
ingredients.
with Your Heart.
Go for it.
Yeah, go for it. Have fun. Ugh.
Okay, well, let's get on topic.
Okay.
Clairvoyance.
Yes. So clairvoyance is often described as the ability to gain information about an object, a person, location, or event through extrasensory perception, which is also known as ESP.
Yeah.
So, without using the typical human senses like sight, hearing, touch, taste, or smell, it's considered a form of psychic or paranormal phenomena.
Interesting.
And I love the word phenomena.
Phenomenanana. Wasn't that a
Phenomena.
song a long, long time ago?
Yes, I think so.
Phenomenana. Anyway,
Yeah.
go ahead.
And so someone who is clairvoyant is said to have the ability to receive information in the form of visions, images, or mental impressions that are not like usually accessible through regular sensory channels. And the visions might relate to the past, present, or future. And they are believed to come from a source of beyond normal human understanding.
Yeah, it's a term that's been used for centuries to
Mhm.
describe this ability to see things that are not visible to the naked eye. But it's also been used to describe anything from the ability to see the future to the ability to detect energies, entities, or other phenomena that
Phenomena.
that are not visible to the human eye. So the
Mhm.
word actually comes from the word for clear, which is clair in French,
Mhm.
and the Latin word for vision, which is visio. So visio gives
Hmm.
us voyance. So it's called really literally clear
Clear
sight.
sight.
Hmm.
Funny. That's
Yeah.
interesting. I didn't know that
Hmm.
part.
Hmm.
I'm over here like it can give you visions related to the past, present, future, and you're like, this is what it means. Like literally, this is what it means. So, a little bit of history. The concept of clairvoyance and similar psychic abilities has a long and diverse history spanning across different cultures and time periods. So, it kind of can go back to ancient civilizations, where the belief in individuals with supernatural abilities to perceive events beyond the ordinary can be traced into ancient Egypt, for
Hmm.
example. And so this is where there were practices of divinations and seers who claimed to have insights on the future.
Hmm.
And I don't know what those were because we don't really have any deep information. We just know that
Hmm.
there is clairvoyance, not really what the messages were. And then similarly with ancient Greece, where oracles and seers would um, have their abilities and foresee events. And again, we don't really have much information because a lot of that stuff is lost.
Yeah, I mean, in ancient Hindu religious texts, they talk about clairvoyance.
Wow.
Wow, clairvoyance as a skill that can be acquired through meditation and personal discipline. Just that makes me
Mm,
think of
hmm.
the Tibetan monks, how they
Yes.
have, and
Yes.
this is another example of something occurring across cultures all across the world before they were even really able to talk about it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's very interesting. And I know we've talked about this before, but things
Yeah.
seem to connect even though they're nowhere near each other.
Yeah, it's
So,
fascinating.
yeah,
So it's not like someone made this up because it's happening in all these different cultures all across the world.
all at the same time. And they don't have modern technology like where
To
we
pick
can,
up the phone and go,
yeah,
hey,
instantly reach someone across the world.
or the internet. Yeah.
Yeah. And then in the Middle Ages, so during the Middle Ages, clairvoyance and other psychic abilities were often associated with religion and mystical practices,
Hmm.
where some Christian
Wow.
mystics claim to have visions and insights into spiritual matters. However, many of these claims were also met with skepticism, and sometimes even persecution was related to these religious authorities. But when you think about it, think about like the vision of Jesus and he came to
Hmm.
I saw a vision and he told me what to do. That's sort of clairvoyance,
Hmm.
whether or not like you believe in that stuff, that's still a form of clairvoyance. Or
Yeah, it's so interesting that a lot of practices that were considered religious back in ancient times, like our pentacle and pentagram,
Mhm.
were very religious. And now people are like, oh, that's evil.
Well, yeah, they associate it with like Satanism and the devil and all of that.
Yeah, it's just so crazy because that's
Yeah,
not how it was in the past.
no,
Anyway.
and I mean, yeah, well, we've talked about this.
Hmm. Hmm.
um, but in the Renaissance and the Enlightenment era, is where they saw a resurgence of interest in mysticism and the occult, including clairvoyance. So some alchemists and philosophers explored the idea of gaining hidden knowledge through the metaphysical means. And
Mm-hmm.
so, but however, as science and rational thinking gained prominence during the Enlightenment as well, clairvoyance and other psychic phenomena started to be viewed as more critically. Like it was more not under, it wasn't under,
Skeptical.
yeah, it was
Yeah. Yeah.
skeptical. They didn't understand. And they were also leaning heavily into religion at this time. So
Mm-hmm.
anything like that made people feel uncomfortable. And you know how
Yeah.
when people feel uncomfortable, it's shunned
The
and made bad, like
yeah,
in a
and the
bad light.
Enlightenment period was when they were trying so hard to, it was the birth of science, and they were
Hmm.
trying to explain things and understand things rather than just saying, "Oh, I have faith." They wanted to explain it. In the
Yeah.
1780s, there was a hypnotist named Pusiger, and he used forces that he called animal magnetism
Hmm.
to put people into a state of hypnosis. And under hypnosis, the patients would display these telepathic abilities.
Hmm.
And it should be noted that he never associated these abilities with anything paranormal. It was more of a scientific view that it was physiological,
Hmm.
something that we were able to go within ourselves and scientifically do, as opposed to paranormal sending us these informations.
I mean,
And
I I mean, in the Enlightenment and Renaissance era, I would feel like they had more of like a connective to themselves and maybe their clairvoyance, like on that level. Like it's like that.
mhm.
I think of it as a level, that you can go to type of thing.
Yeah, I do
And
think
so I feel
that,
like they were probably more connected than we are in our current modern era today.
yeah, magic was still a highly accepted thing back then, as opposed to
Hmm.
now where people are like, oh, there's no such thing as magic,
Yeah.
you know, but it
And I
should,
mean, but when you throw the word magic at it, then people can be skeptical,
right?
but also it's more than that. It's not just like
Which I think that's
magic.
why he called it animal magnetism. Like
Hmm.
he could feel those energies that we feel. He could feel that, but he was trying to explain it scientifically. He was a follower of Franz Mesmer, who was also
Mm.
a hypnotist.
Hmm.
And this is where that term mesmerized comes from. He was one of the first
Oh,
hypnotists to do that technique.
mesmerized.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So let's move into the 19th century of
Okay.
spiritualism, the boom of spiritualism. Uh, it's known as one of the most notable periods for clairvoyance, and it came with the rise of spiritualism. Wow, how many
Mm-hmm.
times can I say spiritualism in 1 minute?
Well, I think
Um,
it's funny because, we were talking about the Enlightenment, they're going more towards science, and then you've got this 19th century
yeah,
spiritualism who are like,
yeah,
let's go back to the unexplained paranormal stuff.
yeah. I mean, I think it's driven by like the ebbs and flows of what's popular, and in this time, there was a lot of struggles, like
Yeah.
economically, and so
Mm-hmm.
they clatched. What's the word? They
Latched.
latched clatched they latched onto something other than what they had to deal with in their present day,
Mm-hmm.
and that was the spiritual realm.
Well, that's kind of like I like to read urban fantasy because it takes
Yeah,
me away from the realism of
yeah,
today.
so this was their books, this was their urban
Yeah,
fantasy.
I, I
So
I think this was the time period where clairvoyance actually began to be associated with spirits and
mhm.
paranormal.
Yes,
That's where that
yes.
this consolidated.
Yeah, and so yeah, this is the period where mediums claimed to communicate with spirits of the deceased and demonstrated very like my
Mm-hmm.
brain's not working, many various psychic abilities, including clairvoyance, and
Mm-hmm.
some of these could include seances and psychic readings,
Mm-hmm.
and these really did gain popularity in that time.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, I'm not surprised clairvoyance is in that clump, but I
Mm-hmm.
don't know if they completely honed in on that's clairvoyance. It was just like a big blob of what they were all doing and,
Right. It was
having
just
fun.
all the spiritualistic yada
Yeah.
yada.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was all the hype. And that's what you were doing instead of going to a party, you were going to a seance.
Yeah, because wasn't that the time frame that we talked about before where the president's wives and things were having
Yes.
seances in the
Yes.
White
It was
House?
the like, oh, I'm gonna go meet my friend for drinks. It's I'm gonna go meet my friend for a seance. And it wasn't anything weird. It wasn't
Yeah,
anything like, oh, I could talk to a bad blah blah blah. No, it was like,
yeah, or summon malignant,
yeah, maybe that's why
malicious,
we
malicious.
malicious. Maybe that's why we have so many portals and everything open on this world was because
You
of this
know,
era.
they
And
were just
they,
running around
yeah, they
amok,
were. They
going,
really were. And
yeah,
they never said, like, they probably didn't have like proper, maybe that's why we have all of rules now because they know what not to, like, what to do
what
and what
not to
not to
do.
do. And
Hmm.
so you always have to say goodbye. But what if they never said goodbye? And so now we just have a whole ton of like evil entities from not our realm
Roaming the
running
world.
around with us. Yeah.
Yep, yep.
I wonder what the demon activity, and then I use demon lightly because that's,
Right.
but I wonder
The
what
entity.
entity activity was prior to the 19th century spiritualism boom and after. I wonder if
Yeah, I
there's any
wonder.
correlation between that because you
They
always
let it.
talk
They
about,
let them all in.
yeah, you always talk about like, oh, they're all, like, if there's ghosts, there's always been ghosts because there's
Hmm.
been life and
And
civilizations
death
and
and.
death and all of that for thousands. I mean, like probably hundreds of thousands of years. Like our planet's old. Our
Hmm.
planet's like what, 4.1 billion years old?
Billion,
Yeah, it's
billions
billion
of years
years
old.
old, and we're only like a blip in that. And so there could have been advanced, civilizations who left the planet and then
Hmm.
everything got wiped out and
They're
it's
like,
like a
oh my
cycle.
God, there's too many ghosts here. We're out of here.
Yeah, we're leaving. So like I wonder if there's any correlation between ghosts and like entities stuck here versus like what previous centuries
Have
have
done
done.
spiritually, maybe.
It's interesting because now we're off topic, but now if you think about like if our planet is that old and we've had
Hmm.
numerous intelligent life here who've left
Hmm.
the planet because whatever reason, did they have ghosts? Did they
Hmm.
understand ghosts? Or was it
Is
just
that
like
why they
a,
left?
is
Yep.
that, I don't think that's why they
Yeah, she's
left.
like, no, River.
But like, do other civilizations have ghosts? Or is it just all, you know, in our heads? Like, what is
Yeah,
it?
I wonder if animals see ghosts. I mean, we see ghosts of animals. I wonder
Yeah.
if animals see them. I think they probably would because they've got more perception than we do.
Yeah. But then, like, you have to understand, like, what is a
I
ghost?
know. We should do a topic on what
Ooh, yeah, we
exactly
should.
is a
And then I could
ghost.
talk more about it on a episode that's not about something else.
Right. Yeah, yeah. Let's do that. Let's
Yeah,
move
yeah.
on.
Okay. So the 20th century, we're still on history. Oh boy. So the 20th century saw the continued interest in paranormal phenomena.
Hmm.
And so that's where organizations like the Society for Psychical Research conducted investigations into psychic abilities, trying to discern their validity. So
Hmm.
despite ongoing interest, scientific skepticism remained very, very prevalent in
Yeah.
this era. I mean, you're always going to have a skeptic. You're always going to have somebody who says, "Oh, I don't." You're always going to have
Well,
somebody that doesn't
science
agree.
science needs skepticism. That's how you
Yes,
verify the
yes.
truth.
But
But
it's funny how
yeah.
that works. You're
Hmm.
always going to have something or
The
somebody.
naysayers,
Yeah, you're always.
which is not necessarily a
It's
bad
not
thing.
bad.
So, you know, but in the 1930s through the 1950s, there was I guess he was a psychiatrist, J.B. Rhine, and he conducted these experiments using the Zener cards. Do you remember what those are? Those are those cards where they have little like wavy marks on them, or a circle, or a plus sign, and you would have someone
Oh
look at
yeah,
them
yeah,
and a
yeah.
person across from them trying to figure out, read their
Yeah,
mind, so
yeah,
to
yeah,
speak.
yeah. Okay.
But he
Mhm.
couldn't tell the difference between what was clairvoyance and what was telepathic using that test.
Oh, okay. Okay.
And also, the United States government jumped on the bandwagon in the 20th century and started doing studies in remote viewing. And this was in the 1970s through the 1990s. where they tried to determine if clairvoyance might be a way to go ahead and acquire knowledge on enemies and enemy information.
Mm-hmm.
And the project was known by several different code names, the last one being the Stargate Project. And it was terminated and declassified in 1995 after the CIA determined that no useful intelligence ever came from that project. This makes me think of Stranger Things, where they were, I think Stranger Things, where they were experimenting on 11 and all the children, is supposed to have been a takeoff of this
Oh,
Stargate project.
okay. Okay. See,
Yeah.
I only saw the first sorry, I only saw the first season of
Really?
yeah, I
Oh my
haven't
God,
seen
I
any of
love
the other
it.
ones. I
I am
don't
a
know.
huge
I just
fan.
couldn't get back into like the second season. Like I couldn't. I don't know. But on TikTok, I always somehow decide to talk
Always
about
on
TikTok.
TikTok.
I
Yeah.
am. I'm always on TikTok where with the Zinner cards, it's very kind of similar, but they'll show a picture on TikTok and it's like, how good is your intuition, basically.
Okay.
And so they'll show a picture and it's all black and white and they're like pick the like and maybe it's like colored pencils that are lined up and it's black and white and they're like pick the red one or pick the yellow one. And so you look at all these black and white pencils and you're like, oh, I wonder which one's the yellow one. So you try to
Uh-huh.
pick and then like it'll change to color and then you can see whether or not you got it
You
right.
were right. Yeah.
And so there's a lot of those on TikTok where there's those and then there's another one where they come up with like pictures of like old timey pictures and they're like, can you guess the color of this person's hair? And then like it'll be black and white and then it'll change it and it's red or whatever.
Oh, interesting.
So that the Zinner cards give me current day TikTok vibe. Like now the modern version of that is TikTok.
Yeah, that's fascinating.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And
Huh.
then so let's move into the modern era of clairvoyance and psychic abilities where it's continued to be a subject of interest. I
Mm-hmm.
feel like we're all like ever since the beginning of time, you're always going to have some sort of interest in like clairvoyance. You're always going
Mm-hmm.
to have somebody who can do these things and then they express that they can do these things and somebody's like you can't do that, you're
Uh-huh.
always going to have interest in these things.
Mm-hmm.
And so with the invention of the internet,
Yeah.
there's a wealth of information and discussions about clairvoyance. And many people say they claim to have these abilities.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like maybe if I focus enough, maybe I could. I feel like on some sort of level, I
Like the
am.
Tibetan monks, I think that we can train ourselves.
Yeah.
I have no
Um,
doubt that we all have an innate ability. We just
oh,
have
I
to,
know. Like it's just like in us.
and we have to train it.
Yeah.
I don't
How
have the patience.
uh I could have the patience. I could have the
Hey, you're
patience.
unemployed, so you have time.
Yeah, but no, I used to be so impatient when it came to like these small, like finicky problems and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But now I'm a little bit more patient into like what needs to be done. And I'm like, okay, I understand that these things take time.
And I think if you schedule a time, like some people meditate when they wake up or whatever, if you schedule a time, this is my time to practice clairvoyance.
Yeah.
And you just set a time, here's 10 minutes. I'm going to do
Yeah.
10 minutes every day and it's going to always be at the same time. And, I think it's possible. So I might flippantly say, oh, I don't have the patience, but you can make
You
time.
can make
And
time.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
However, scientific consensus remains largely unconvinced due to the lack of evidence, I would say.
yeah. I would say, how do you prove it?
Yeah,
Although
you can't,
think
it's not something you can really test.
I think they're starting to do tests using MRIs and stuff to see what the brain does when
Oh,
it's, yeah. So there might at some point be scientific evidence of something going on,
but then it won't be like, oh, in the realm of spiritualism, it'll be in the realm of science.
but
Science.
they can cross over, I think.
Yeah, but I like it when it's all alone and like we're in our own section
That's
versus
true.
uh
I like the fact that magic can be scientific as well.
I do too. But at the same time, it kind of takes away. from like the
The magic.
magic. Yeah, it kind of takes away the magic of it all. But I do understand because I mean, I feel like everything's scientific.
Hmm. I
Like
think so too.
everything's
It's just,
mathematical, everything's scientific. It's just a matter of understanding it
that's
in
right.
that way.
I agree.
But then I have a lot of opinions. That's why I have a podcast. I have a lot of
That's
opinions
right.
about how we do science as
Yeah.
because we always try to make it so where we understand it in earth terms, but that's not
Hmm.
how everything works
And in
outside of earth
human terms,
in
and humans
human
are just
terms.
very teeny tiny little
Yeah, so
part
for us
of
to understand the
everything.
speed of light, we had to condense it down. And it's like, but that's not actually the speed of light. That's just
Hmm.
the speed of light of what we understand.
Yeah, of
It's
the
a way, it's
definition
like,
we gave to it.
yeah, a
Yeah.
part of what the speed of light could be. Anyways,
Anyway,
see,
totally different
that's what I'm
different
saying.
topic.
The science, I know a lot of like the science and how it's kind of crumpled down to
Hmm.
human understanding. And so it's just like I feel like it takes away a lot. So if you clump clairvoyance or anything magical in the sense of science, how much are you taking away from it for people to understand?
Hmm. Well, it's like time. Humans think of it as linear, and I don't
It's
know that
not.
that's really what
No.
it is. Yeah.
Yeah. That's that again, off topic, but that was another problem with all of that. Anyways,
Yeah. Anyway.
so throughout history, wrapping up history a little bit. So throughout history, clairvoyance has been a topic that has both captivated and divided people.
Hmm.
So it's important to recognize that cultural, religious, and social beliefs have influenced the perception of clairvoyance and what it is today and across different eras. So, while some individuals believe in its existence, the scientific community remains skeptical, as always, and requires rigorous evidence to validate such claims.
Yeah. Yeah. And then there's all kinds of types of clairvoyance, more than I didn't really know how to categorize it. So I just am kind of going to go through some of them.
Okay.
So, first, there are terms like cryptesthesia covers a whole range of phenomena, including clairvoyance, premonitions, dowsing, telepathy, and that's all kind of clumped
Mm-hmm.
together. The telopsis or telecognosis, and I'm probably butchering all these names. I'm so sorry.
That's okay. That's
Um,
what we do.
that covers a lot of things, except for it does not cover deathbed visions or apparitions.
Mm.
And then you have spontaneous clairvoyance versus induced by suggestion clairvoyance versus autosuggestion. So spontaneous is one that just happens. You're sitting there and all of a sudden you get the vision or
Mm-hmm.
the
Insight.
premonition, the insight. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Induced by suggestion would be when you are put under hypnosis or some other kind of guided experience, like a guided meditation that tries to help you have clairvoyance. And then autosuggestion is things like crystal gazing or divination or scrying, that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
There's also something called X-ray clairvoyance, which I thought was bizarre. It's the ability to see through into a closed space, such as boxes, envelopes, rooms, or books. And so
Ooh,
what they would do to test this would be to put something that the viewer, doesn't know anything about somewhere else, and then tries to have them see what's inside it. What's in this envelope? What did I write in this envelope?
that would be
Or,
cool.
yeah, and that's called X-ray clairvoyance. There is medical clairvoyance.
Okay, but wait. If you have X-ray clairvoyance, you could basically see under people's clothes.
Oh my Lord. Yes.
That's what my
Superman
that's what my
X-ray
brain went
vision.
through went to. I was like, okay, but then if you're by somebody who has X-ray clairvoyance, then you're basically just like vulnerable all the time because you don't
Hmm.
know what they're seeing
Unless it's an ability that they can't make happen on demand,
on
you
it.
know.
Yeah, interesting.
And then medical clairvoyance is the ability to see the inner mechanisms of the human body and diagnose disease.
Ooh,
And
that's cool.
there's a whole lot on this, which I think is the coolest thing. And they had some girl, she was like a 7-year-old girl, and she accurately predicted, not predicted, but accurately determined the illnesses in like an ungodly amount
Oh,
of
wow.
people. Yeah, she just had some kind of ability to diagnose disease. And
So,
she was like young, so she didn't have medical terms or
yeah.
understand, you know, what pneumonia is or whatever.
So, as a 7-year-old, as she grows up, does she lose that ability or does
I
she
don't know.
maintain it? And then I had another thought. Oh, yeah. So, would you consider this medical clairvoyance? So, there was a woman and her husband, and one day she she smelled like her husband walked by her and he smelled, right? He
Hmm.
smelled really bad. Have you heard this?
No, but I have
Okay.
had that.
He smelled really bad, right?
Hmm.
But it was a very distinct smell. Like something it just came out of nowhere,
Hmm.
really. And it was a very distinct smell. And she was like, okay, go put on deodorant, go shower, go do whatever you need. But the smell stayed the same. And other
Hmm.
people around her were like, he smells fine. Like, what? I don't know what you're
Hmm.
talking about. So she just kind of lived with it, you know. Her husband smelled. And then he was later then diagnosed with Parkinson's disease. And she was going to a meeting with her husband for Parkinson's disease to like a support
Yeah.
group.
Hmm.
And she walked into the room and everybody smelled like that.
Oh my God.
So she like went to the like her husband's doctors, was like, hey, all of these people smell like this. And like this was around the time like her husband started smelling and then like he had symptoms, blah, blah, blah.
Hmm.
And so she can detect early onset Parkinson's. So they
That's
used in
crazy.
science, they went in and like figured out what it was in her nose, I guess, in her smell that
Hmm.
was able to determine if you had Parkinson's or not, and they were able to create a, I guess, a way to like a early
Like to test
onset,
for it.
yeah, early onset test for Parkinson's.
I had that, and I always just related. I have got a very, very strong sense of smell.
Mm-hmm.
And I had an aunt who was old, and I could smell something on her, and I went to my mom and I was like, she smells funny. And she did. And she was sick, but
Mm-hmm.
no one else could smell it. And
Mm-hmm.
I just wrote it up to I have a very strong sense of
Yeah.
smell.
But could you say that that's a sort of like you're not seeing, you're smelling? It's a sort of
Yeah,
medical clairvoyance, but not with sight, with smell,
I
with
would
another
say
sensory.
for that woman you were talking about, it would be because I don't smell sick people all the time. I mean, it was just
Yeah.
my aunt.
I mean, for her, it was just her husband. And she was like, God, my husband stinks. And I don't know why. And then she walked into that room and it was like an overwhelming smell of that, whatever that smell was.
That is the coolest thing
And so they were able to use her nose to
to
help.
detect it. How
Yeah,
amazing is that?
it's pretty cool. It's
Huh.
pretty cool. Okay, go
They
ahead.
also have traveling clairvoyance, which involves a change in the center of your perception. It's like a mental journey to a distant scene, and you can give a description of the same. And one of our episodes we talked about, I think it might have been our dream walking, where you actually see a scene in another room and can say, okay, the candle's there, the clock is there. That is traveling clairvoyance, where you're actually not seeing from yourself, you're seeing from somewhere else.
Hmm.
Which I think back to Stranger Things, I think that she had that traveling clairvoyance because they kept trying to, I think they were trying to use her to get intel on Russians and whatnot. Um,
Yeah.
they call platform clairvoyance seeing spirits.
Hmm.
Now, I came across this really interesting example, and there's still debate on whether he is legit or not. So, or was, he's dead
Hmm.
now, but
Okay.
his name was Bert Reese, and he was born in 1851 and he died in 1926. And Thomas Edison actually was experimenting with him to try to, this was that era where they were fascinated and wanted to try to put a scientific reasoning to it.
Hmm.
So Thomas Edison wrote in a distant room on a piece of paper, And what he wrote was, is there anything better than hydroxide of nickel for an alkaline electric battery? And he didn't tell Reese what it said. He didn't bring the letter with him. And as soon as he walked back in the room, Reese said, nope, there is nothing better than hydroxide of nickel for an alkaline battery.
Oh, okay.
And then another case involving him, this Reese guy, Baron Schrenk-Notzing wrote on 5 pieces of paper questions like, what is my mother's name? Will you go to Germany? Will my book be a success? What is the name of my eldest son? And an intimate question that they wouldn't tell us what it was.
Okay.
And then he mixed all these papers up and presented them to the Reese without showing him what was on them. He just presented the paper, and as soon as Reese barely touched him, he answered every one of the questions.
That's cool.
Mm-hmm. And then in 1915, Reese was convicted by a magistrate as a fortune teller. In one of our episodes, we were talking about witchcraft laws, and that's one of the things you could be prosecuted for. And so the magistrate convicted him as a fortune teller, and he appealed his conviction and agreed to demonstrate his abilities by taking a test. So at that hearing in New York, Judge Rosalsky wrote 3 questions on a piece of paper, and Reese successfully told the judge what the questions were, and the charges were then dropped and he was released.
Okay. That's like, geez.
Yeah, I know, but many people say, oh, he was just a mentalist. You know, he was an actor who uses he has a keen sense of observation, sleight of hand, and all of that. But
maybe, could be. We don't know.
Reading those, how would you know?
I don't know, unless if he like saw, I don't know, the person like write it and he knows how the hand moves when you write. I don't know. That's a lot though.
I mean, like he would know Thomas Edison's question would likely be about something scientific, but how do you know exactly
else? Yeah.
Unless he knew that Edison was working on electric batteries or something. And so, but
I know, but all the
there's
other
so many different
instances,
questions too that you could ask about science. And then those 5 questions, you can predict pretty much what kind of question people, mother's name is probably common, but when will you go to Germany? How would you know that? Will my book be a success? Okay, that might be if the guy's a writer. Of course, that's going to be a question he wants answered.
Yeah. Or like, I mean, I guess, and how did he answer that question? Like, will my book be a success? Yes, I could see the future. No, but it's probably like, I don't know, but maybe.
Yeah.
Like, that's what I feel like that answer would be.
Yeah, it's just fascinating. So there are documented cases out there that seem to have scientific explanation, and the scientists are still like, no, he's a trickster.
See,
and maybe he was. I don't know.
Someone. And maybe, yeah.
I don't
but
know.
Still.
Yeah.
Okay. So I know we've been rambling on a lot about clairvoyance and types and all of that, but how do you use it in your witchcraft? Because I know that's why we're all here.
Right.
So again, clairvoyance is a paranormal element, quote unquote paranormal, and it can be associated with the realm of witchcraft. So in the context of witchcraft, clairvoyance is considered a psychic ability that some practitioners claim to possess, which I feel like we all have it. We just need to hone in on it.
Right.
So clairvoyance is really connected with divination because of like images and, divination is about seeking insight and guidance. And so I feel like clairvoyance, it makes sense. It does. It really does. So clairvoyance plays a significant role in various forms of divination, where it is believed to provide practitioners with insight and information that go beyond ordinary sensory perceptions.
Yeah, I read about a witch who, she said this. She said, people call me all the time, like, where are my car keys? Or the cat disappeared. Where is he? Is he coming back? And she said, usually I just know. The car keys are in the pantry next to the peanut butter. The cat is fine because he's holed up at a neighbor's house and they're feeding him. She said, there's no logic to it. I just know. And typically I'm right.
Interesting. See, like, I mean, I don't know.
That's fascinating.
I get like feelings of like, oh, this is going to happen. And then it does.
See, and maybe you need to practice on honing in on that.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
Well, you can also use scrying. So, scrying is the technique where a practitioner uses a reflective surface, such as a crystal ball, mirror, or a bowl of water, to have these visions. They could be
Mm-hmm.
clairvoyant visions. So, the practitioner would then gaze into the surface to allow their mind to enter that receptive state where
Mm-hmm.
visions, symbols, and images may appear, which are interpreted and provide insight into questions or situations at hand.
Mm-hmm.
Clairvoyance. You can also use tarot cards for tarot readings. So
My
this,
favorite.
yeah, it's a very popular tool for divination and clairvoyance. Why not clairvoyance be used in this as well?
Mm-hmm.
Um, so a clairvoyant tarot reader, which to have that title would be cool. I'm a
Uh-huh.
clairvoyant tarot reader.
Uh-huh.
Might receive additional images or insight beyond the traditional meaning of the cards.
Mm-hmm.
And so these visions can enhance the interpretation of the readings and provide a deeper understanding of that situation.
Mm-hmm.
You can also use runes and other oracle systems. So, like oracle cards or, your runes, your whatever, whatever it
Throw
may
your
be.
bones, the bone
Yeah.
throwing and that
Yeah.
kind of thing.
Ooh,
Yeah.
we should do an episode on that.
Yeah. I think it's on our
So,
list to do.
is it?
I think so.
So, I mean, these are all just numerous ways like aura reading, like dream interpretation, psycho,
Psychometry.
I said there we go, psychometry. And psychometry involves is like the involving of holding an object that belongs to someone or is related to a particular event and then using your
Oh.
clairvoyance to gain insights on the object's history or emotions or
So
energies.
that's like what police people would use if they're trying to find a missing person. Here, hold
Oh
these car
yeah, yeah.
keys or
Like
whatever.
yeah.
That's
Where are they? Yeah.
psychometry. Interesting.
It's yeah, this practice it's different than like, tarot, dream
Mm-hmm.
interpretation, all of that, because this practice is based on the idea that objects can hold residual energies that you can then pick up as a clairvoyant person and tap into that.
Interesting.
Hmm.
Yeah.
And then another one that was different than what we always hear, like we always
Mm-hmm.
talk about, oh, you can use that in dream working, tarot,
Mm-hmm.
divination, scrying, is remote viewing. So, remote viewing is a practice where a clairvoyant attempts to gather information about a distant or unseen target. So, this can be done individually or as part of a structured protocol. And remote viewing is often associated with military and government experiments, but it's also utilized by some of us
Yeah.
divinationers.
So for the government, that Stargate project. For
Hmm.
Stranger Things,
Yep.
that's,
Yep. That's where it's called remote viewing.
interesting. I didn't know that
Hmm.
was the term.
Hmm.
And I actually read about a witch who is clairaudient, where she hears things rather than seeing them.
Oh,
Her
see,
name is,
you can see them, you can smell them, you
yeah.
can, yeah, hear them.
I learned about this lady on the Learned Religions website, which we use a lot in our research.
Hmm.
And her name is Mardia. And this is what she says. She says, I sometimes hear words loud and clear that tip me off that something is happening. At first, I thought I was going nuts, had my hearing checked, got evaluated for mental health problems, and so on. But the only explanation is that sometimes I hear a word, and it's always just one or two words, that tells me about something going on. When my mother was on a cruise last year, I woke up in the middle of the night because I heard her voice saying flood. I
Oh,
called her to make sure she was okay because, she was on a ship in the middle of the ocean. Everything was fine, but the next day I went to her house to feed her cats and found that a water pipe had burst about 10 minutes before I got there.
ooh,
Isn't that crazy?
those poor cats.
I know. Well, they're probably like, oh, free water.
Yeah, that is crazy because I mean, the first thing that you're gonna think of is like, oh my God, she's on a cruise.
Now,
That's like the worst thing that you
I
could
know. And that
have.
terrified her. But don't you hear words?
Sometimes
Yeah.
I don't really pay attention because okay. Oh yeah, I've been meaning to tell you guys. It's been a little while with everything. Like it's been like 3 weeks since we had recorded last week, so about four
Mm-hmm.
weeks now from
Mm-hmm.
there. And I said that weird. It was 3 weeks prior to our last. last recording.
Okay.
So we just
It
recorded
was a while ago.
it was 4 weeks ago. Okay. That I
Okay.
haven't been talking to y'all, but I've been letting my walls down so I could bring
Oh,
in, so I can have some more things. And I've been having dreams that are very real and vivid and could potentially happen
nice.
and all
Okay.
of that. And so I do hear words, but I haven't had any words come through this time. Where
Okay.
sometimes when, like, it's usually around the fall when the veil is thin and my
Mm-hmm.
shields are kind of like lower because I haven't really had to keep my guard up because I haven't been so, like, the
Mm-hmm.
veil is thinner. And so now I'm more perceptive.
Mm-hmm.
And so I have had a couple of words come through in images. More one more specifically, one said, I can picture the picture, like I can picture the image that came to my mind, but it was like drown or like something like that. And it
Oh,
was of like a little boy. I think he drowned
yeah. This
and
is
all
the
of
one you
that.
told me about.
And
Yeah.
that was the only really like that was the only time where I got like an image and a word at the same time. Because
Mm-hmm.
usually it's just either an image or it's just a word.
Mm-hmm.
Because there was one of an older gentleman that was coming through and it's all kind of cluttered. Like I couldn't hear words per se, but I could understand
Mm-hmm.
what he was trying to tell me. He just wanted he it's so sad because I wish I could help these people, but I'm also not the one to go to
Mm-hmm.
because I don't do that. But he wanted to reach out to a loved one to let them know, or his wife, I think it was his wife, to let her know that he was okay. But I'm not the person
I'll go with you.
no, 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 no. I'm not the person to do that. And plus, there was no information. It was just like, I'm like, anyways, it was an older man.
You wouldn't have been able to find the wife anyway, I guess.
No. So, but like, yeah,
Yeah.
I do get some images and I do get some words every now and then. But yeah,
Okay. Interesting. Okay.
who knows? Maybe like her, I could just have some mental health problems. Anyways.
Anyways, okay.
So some other ways you can use it in witchcraft is through spiritual communication. So some witches may use their clairvoyance to communicate with spirits, ancestors, and other worldly entities, kind of like how I was just talking about, where,
Mm-hmm.
I get messages, receiving messages and guidance. You can also receive guidance. It doesn't have to be from somebody seeking guidance. It could be somebody giving you guidance
Oh.
and or warning you from other entities or anything else.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And then the practice is like clairvoyance is very, prevalent. And so you see it a lot with mediums in
Mm-hmm.
mediumships. And
Mm-hmm.
so, if you don't know what a medium is, mediums are individuals who claim to have the ability to communicate with spirits. So, have a high, clairvoyance
Mm-hmm.
frequency, whatever you want to call it. They
Mm-hmm.
have those psychic abilities where they have sight, insight, and all of that.
Mm-hmm.
You can contact deceased loved ones. Spirit guides are known to be clairvoyants as well.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and just stop me if you want to go into like maybe some small detail, but we've talked about all of these.
Yeah.
So I'm just
Yeah.
going to give you like a light list. And if there's something that we haven't really touched on as much, then that's when I'll go into a little bit of detail.
Mm-hmm.
Channeling. I don't think we've talked about channeling as
Yeah. This
much.
one is fascinating to
So,
me.
and I didn't go too deep because channeling to me is easy to understand just based on the word channeling.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So, channeling is a practice where an individual allows a spirit or entity to speak through them.
Mm-hmm.
And so, in clairvoyant channeling, the practitioner may receive visual information that accompanies the messages or teachings from the spirit they are channeling.
Yeah. We talked a little bit about this in our seance
We
episode.
did. I do remember.
To me, that channeling would be, you would really have to let your walls down
Yeah. And
100%. And
it's
as bad as I am with not having walls, I just don't know that I would be able to accept another
no,
entity to, or spirit to speak through me. That's scary to me.
yeah, it's scary. So,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, no, that, yeah. And then for divine insights, I feel like that's pretty self-explanatory with
Yeah.
the clairvoyance. And
Mm-hmm.
then you can use it for astral travel or your out-of-body experiences.
Mm-hmm.
And then this one's the one that I thought was really interesting was energetic imprints,
Hmm.
where clairvoyance can be used to detect energetic imprints left behind by spirits or events.
Yeah, we're going to do an episode on cursed items and things like that. And I feel like a clairvoyant would
Mm-hmm.
really, I can't imagine a clairvoyant coming across a cursed item and getting those
Yeah.
readings
Yeah.
off of it.
So I thought this one was really cool because the
Yeah.
practice involves sitting in or visiting like historical locations of paranormal activity and attempting to perceive residual energies and
Oh,
impressions.
so not necessarily even
I mean, it
items,
could
but
be
places.
anything. Yeah.
Yeah.
Places, anything.
Okay.
You can use it in your spell work.
Hmm.
Clairvoyance is easily used in spell work, where in your spell work you can practice with rituals, symbols, anything like that to bring the intention of what you want. And clairvoyance is just another tool. I
Hmm.
want to like we talk about tools and as like physical objects, but you know, clairvoyance can be used as a tool. Like
Yeah,
it is a tool.
I kind of feel like it's a lot like intuition when you're using clairvoyance in this way.
Hmm.
You're following what the universe is telling you or
Yeah,
whatever.
yeah. And then when you're working in a spell or you're working with these things with clairvoyance, you always do the same things that we always tell you to do, where it's like you
Hmm.
prepare for the spell, you cleanse your space, you choose the right spell, you enhance your visualization, you may receive symbols, journal. Hey, another reason to have another journal.
Another journal.
So I feel like everything is basically the same. It just this is another tool that you can
Yeah,
incorporate into your craft.
I feel like you've got to be aware to listen to the clairvoyance that's coming to you
Mm-hmm.
because it will help you choose the right spell. It's going to help you choose the right tool. That when I make my jar spells, I've never thought of it as being clairvoyance, but I'm guided to use particular crystal chips or
Mm-hmm.
particular
Mm-hmm.
things, and that could be clairvoyance helping me to choose the right tool.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Hmm.
I mean, I feel like anything else that I say is going to be very repetitive on our other episodes.
Hmm.
So, I mean, I'll just leave it at that. Clairvoyance can be used in anything. It can be used for your chakra balances. It can be used for aura readings, like I said earlier, or um, maybe energetic cord cutting. I'll talk a little bit about that because that one's
Oh,
very interesting.
let's do an episode on cord cutting.
Okay. But in this one, energetic cords are symbolic connections that can form between individuals. And
Hmm.
so these cords may carry attachments or negative influences, it could be good or bad influences. And so a clairvoyant, like healer or clairvoyant person might perceive these cords and work to cut or release them, aiming to promote like healthier boundaries and stuff like
Hmm.
that. Um,
Or, there are people who can't disentangle themselves from someone that's toxic in their lives.
yeah, yeah,
And that energy cord cutting, would be a great way to do that.
yeah,
Um, and I think if you're clairvoyant, you can see those cords. Whereas, so maybe it might not be the person who needs the help. It's going to be the person who goes to a clairvoyant to get the help because the
yeah,
clairvoyant's going to be
yeah.
able to see those cords.
I agree. I
Yeah.
mean, I think that's pretty much all that I have
Yeah, me too.
because we've been blabbing on about clairvoyance now for a little bit. So
It's a fascinating
it's
topic.
very
And,
fascinating.
I've never really uh, thought about it in terms of witchcraft before until we did the research on this.
Hmm.
And I
Yeah.
think it's a huge part of
It's a huge,
witchcraft.
like I said, it's a whole nother tool. And it's kind of like made me think about the tools that we use in witchcraft a little bit differently because this is not a physical tool. And so when you say tool, you think of, oh, okay, an athame
Right.
or a pendulum or, whatever it may be. But this is a mental tool, which I think is even more important.
I think so too.
So, yeah,
Well, you want to do the outro?
sure. Thank you for listening.
Mm-hmm.
You can find us on our website at www.c3witchypodcast.com. There you will find our episodes, links to our social media. Let me see if I can list our social media. That's Facebook, TikTok, Twitter, which is now X, and
X,
Instagram.
Instagram. Yeah.
And then you can find our links to our merch on our website as well. There's like a little tab. You click merch or shop merch exclamation point, and it'll take you to our other website that is www.c3witchypodcastmerch.com. And there we have our spooky season merch out. So as of today, when this is released, we will have almost a whole, like a little under, or like a little bit over, of a month for you to get our spooky merch. So, because it's limited time, it ends basically the last day of October, November 1st, it ends. So we want you guys to, if you want, buy our merch and rep us, wear us, whatever it may be. If you want these designs, get them now.
Yes.
Also, please support us on Patreon or Buzzsprout. You'll have access to our After Dark series on both of those platforms. And then you get extra stuff on Patreon where I do guided meditations. There are witchy to-do lists. There are recipes. There are spells. We have quite a bit.
I sell stuff on bats and baubles on my Etsy store, and some of that stuff I put on Patreon for free for our supporters, because we love you guys so much and we really appreciate your help.
Yep. And I think we're going to be trying to do something fun for our patrons coming up in the next couple months. So if you want to be a part of that, stay tuned. Get on there.
And we'll be back.
We'll be back.
And until then, stay witchy.
Woo.